The paradox of place. It's a talk with a lot of doubt. It's full of doubt. I don't know. I don't know if this is, I have the answer or anything. But it seems to me that my discipline, architecture, has a real problem about place. And it's driven by two aspects of technology. And it all started on the 30th of September 1968, when this work of genius, the Boeing 747, was unveiled to the world. And it started the process of mass mobility for the world. So that now, this is the data from IATA about flights in the world. Huge numbers of people flying, equivalent to half of all the world's population. The equivalent of half all the world's population will take one flight in 2016. We are desperate to be somewhere other than here. We are desperate to be traveling somewhere else. Also in the 60s, the space age began, and we started to be able to float satellites around the world. Incredible, incredible thing to be able to do. And as a result of that, we have the second big push of technology. There's mass mobility and mass connectivity. Such that there are 10 billion telephone calls made per day. 10 billion telephone calls. We are desperate to be talking to somebody else somewhere other than where we are. So we want to be somewhere else and we want to connect to something else all the damn time. This is a real problem for architects. And so we end up with a complicated diagram, and I'm not going to explain it. It has two axes. Horizontal is the axis of mobility. More mobility at one end, less mobility at the other end. And vertically, the axis of connectivity, wanting to be connected. And we exist in a confused mess in the middle. Maybe you're not confused, but we architects are very, very confused. Let me show you some of the impacts of this. If we take the traditional city, of which you have thousands in Italy, the historic city was somewhere, fixed in space and time, and we had no choice. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the wonderful thing about it was architects were in charge. We had complete control. Whereas now, modernity produces environments of nowhere like this. There's no season, there's no day or night. You're neither here nor there. You don't know where you are. It's an ambiguous sense of place and time. This is modernity. We also have the algorithmic development with the same idea reproduced here and there and everywhere. So you travel, but it makes no difference. You arrive somewhere that was just like where you left. This is a real problem for architects. This another sense of everywhere, everywhere being the same. The hotel's the same, the building's the same. And then we get this wonderful phenomenon. Italy kicks a football into the net on one side of the world, and the Italians in the pub in London go berserk simultaneously. This is the first time this is possible that this could happen in history. That emotion can go from one side of the world to the other side of the world like this. So where is the football match taking place? Where is place? Is it in the pub or is it at the game? And now you'll see in the newspaper, it is a picture like this. If it was a big result, it's the picture in the pub, not the picture at the game, which is the most important thing. And also you have this experienced ignored. This is an advert for a mobile phone. So floating in a hot air balloon above the wonders of Dubai, that's the one time you need to be on the phone to somebody else, somewhere else, not experiencing the thing which is taking place around you. And you see this all the time in restaurants. Two lovers talking to somebody else when they, so experience ignored. So again, very ambiguous. Are we? Where are we? Where are we? Are you up in the sky? You'll never guess where I'm calling you from. or you get ideas like this, where you get famous things from all around the world, famous icons, collected and just assembled in a place. Which again, where the hell are we? Are we in New York? No, we're in Las Vegas, as it turns out, but it doesn't really matter. So what can we poor architects do about it? What can we do? Again, because it's so powerful, all this technology, much more powerful than architecture, which is this old-fashioned thing about place. Well, I've been playing around for the last couple of years by trying to ignore traditional architecture, which is really material architecture that lasts and lasts and lasts. Buildings, streets, infrastructure, all of this stuff. And instead thinking about the architecture of things which change very quickly, that are disposable, that are not serious and enduring. Inspired by some architects again from the 1960s, Archigram from London, who were passionate about this idea of the architecture of change rather than the architecture of permanence. So we worked at the South Bank Centre and we took a nowhere, like at the top, and made it into a gallop. We take a problem of disconnection in a kind of concrete nowhere, and for no money we just add some containers and some throwaway bits and pieces and make a great civic staircase. We take another disconnect of a miserable place and add some jolly, a bit of colour, a bit of connectivity, a bit of people life, and that seems to work. We take a miserable piece of architecture like this, which is just temporary and throwaway, add some colour for no money, and suddenly inside it becomes a place to have your wedding photographs taken. So making architecture and emotion out of throwaway nothing. And you end up with celebrating the temporary rather than the permanent in architecture is perhaps a way forward for us to tackle this thing that architecture has lost its power. Place has lost its power. Perhaps it's a way we architects can bring emotion back to place. Because there's been a shift, a big shift from the architecture of permanence, of space, of form, which was very important in architecture, to an architecture of transience, of networks, and of surface. And that's the paradox of place. The paradox of place is that we demand mass mobility, mass connectivity, and freedom from place. We want to free ourselves from place. But on the other hand, we also demand local authenticity. We demand vivid experiences. We demand engagement with place at the same time. And we have these two things in our head simultaneously. It's probably more of a problem for me as an architect than it is you for a member of the public, but nonetheless, that is the paradox of place. Thank you very much.